All right, today we're going to learn what we call complete the square. You do want a calculator, okay? So have a calculator ready. But what we're learning to do is we're learning to make something that will factor a little bit easier, and it'll put it in vertex form. If you remember the vertex form, where we can look at the quadratic and just see the vertex, okay? But we're doing some manipulation is what we're doing. So here we've got like an A, B, and a C term. A would be 1, B would be -8, C would be -12. And what the way I teach it is we write the A term and the B term with the x's. We go, so x squared minus 8x. And now what I tell students to do is put a couple blanks in. So we're going to do somewhere right after the 8, we're going to put a blank, and we're going to fill in the blank with something, okay? And then I put the -12, and then I put another blank. Okay, now what goes in the blank? Here's what we do. What we do is we look at the B term. The B is -8. And we divide it in 2. We take half of it. So half of that -8 would be -4. Then we take that value, whatever we got, the -4, and we square it. And this is what we call completing the square. So we're going to square it to make it something. And -4 times -4 is a positive 16. So in the first blank, what I'm going to put in is I'm going to put in a positive 16. And that's going to help me do something called complete the square. We'll talk about it next. But what you have to learn is the first process. First, you split things up so you can look at it a little different. And then we're going to fill in the blank. And the process is take half of it, square it, figure out what that number is. Now, here's the rule. You can't just add something without balancing things out. So I've added 16. So at the end of this problem in the other blank, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 16. Now, if I were to combine the two red numbers that I have on there, -16 minus 6, or positive 16 minus 16, what would I get if I put those together? 0. So what I've really done is nothing. Okay? I've really done nothing because if I put those two red numbers together, they would get 0, right? Okay, but why did I do that? And here's the reason I did it. Now I'm going to look just at these 3 pieces, and I'm going to factor it. And when we factor it, what I would get is x and x, and I already actually know the answer if I'm smart about it. It would be x minus 4 and x minus 4 if I factor just these 3. Now, right now, I'm ignoring these 2. I'm not doing anything with those. I'm ignoring them. Okay, we'll come back to them. But x minus 4 times x minus 4, x times x will give me x squared. And if I check these, -4x and -4x, that'll give me -8x, right? And then -4 times -4 will get me positive 16. Okay, now there's another way to write this. And the way we would write this is x minus 4 squared. And the whole reason we did it was to get 2 things that are identical when we factor, and then we can write them as a little squared. Okay? So, next, now I'm going to deal with these 2. Those 2, if I put them together, I get -28. And now I'm actually done. If I were looking at this thing, I know where the vertex would be. If out here I had a y equals, my vertex would be at 4, -28. Because if you remember, when we look at this, it's always the opposite. And then it's the same for the other one, 4, -28. So it's helped me put in vertex form. I actually don't have to identify the vertex. The whole goal of today is to do what we call complete the square. Just learn to put it in that form. Okay? So now we're going to look at the next one. So remember, it's a process. What you have to do first is break it up a little bit. X squared plus 14x, then a blank, plus 50, and then a blank. All right. Now, what do I do? The reason I said you want a calculator, the calculator makes it a little bit easier. You look at your B term. Your B term is 14. So if you take 14 and divide by 2, you get 7. Then the next step is to do what we call complete the square or square it, and you get 49. Now that tells you the number that you're going to put in the blank. So you do two steps, take half and then square it. So in here, I'm going to put plus 49. In this blank, I'm going to put minus 49. And again, why? The two numbers that I put in there have to give me nothing. So I'm really not changing it. What I'm doing is manipulating it so that it looks a little different. Now I'm going to ignore these two for now, but I'm going to put these together. And I would get x and x. And if you remember, when you took half of the 14, you got 7. So what I should put in here is a plus 7 and a plus 7. Because 7x and 7x make 14. 7 times 7 is 49. Now I write it differently. I write it like this. X plus 7 squared. And now I put these together. 50 minus 49 is 1. So now that one is in the completed square form. Okay? We'll learn more what we do with this, but right now what we're learning is the first process, how to complete the square. It's called completing the square. Now, the next one is a little different. What you should notice right away is there's a 2 there. Okay, so one like this. That 2 messes things up. We don't deal with a 2 when we complete the square. So the first thing we are going to look at is we're going to take this 2 and we're going to factor it out. And we're going to go x squared plus 6x blank and close the parentheses. Now you might be like, huh? This one's going to be a little bit different. I actually wish this one wasn't on this lesson, but we're going to deal with it. Okay, out here we're going to go minus 18, and then we're going to go blank. Now this is going to be a little bit different. Okay, now you might say, so far I'm a little lost. Well, what did I do? I said the 2 is going to be a problem, so we get rid of the 2, so we get this to a regular x squared. So if I were to multiply this 2, I'd have 2x squared. But I want the x squared to be with the 6x, so I divided that in half. 2 times 6x gets me back to the 12x. Are you kind of with me? Okay. Then I threw on the blank, and I closed the parentheses. Okay. So now I'm going to complete the square on this one. So I'm going to take the 6, and I'm going to divide it by 2. We get 3. And then I hit squared. We get 9. So the value I'm going to put in the blank is 9. Okay, now I've added 9, but there's an issue. The other blank, I cannot put a negative 9 in. And here's why. If I were to multiply this 2, I'd get 2x squared plus 12x, but that 2 needs to be times the 9 as well. So I really haven't added 9. I've really added 2 times 9 because it's in the parentheses. So I've really added 18. Does that make a little sense? So I have to recognize when I put it in parentheses, that's really like adding 18. So out here I subtract 18 to balance out that blue number. Okay? All right, now, this 2 is here. This thing will factor. X plus 3, x plus 3. 3x and 3x make 6x. 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 18, negative 18 make negative 36. We're almost done. We write this one as x plus 3 with a squared on it and a minus 36. We got it? Okay, next one. Part D. Negative x squared plus 18x plus, I can't see my last number. What is it? 20? Thank you. All right, again, we got one with a number out in front. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take a -3, I'm going to get rid of it, I'm going to go x squared minus 6x. You might be like, minus? The -3 times the -6 will give me the positive 18. I'll close off my parentheses, I'll put plus 20. Now I need to get a couple blanks in there. So I'm going to put one of the blanks in the parentheses, one of the blanks outside of the parentheses. See if you can tell what will go in the blank. Can you fill in the blank? What's half of -6? Okay, but then you have to square it. So you put a 9 in the blank. Now in the other blank, it looks like I've added 9, but I haven't. In the other blank, I put a plus 27. What? If I were to multiply that -3 times 9, I would have -27. So I have to undo what I did with this. -27, positive 27. So I would get 0. Okay? Now, the -3 sits here. This becomes x minus 3, x minus 3. It's actually really easy if you remember when you did half, that's the way it's always going to factor. Out here we have plus 47. So we write -3 times x minus 3 squared plus 47.